Hey, good morning, friends, families, and all of you out there in Facebook land. It is time to worship again, and we're glad that you are tuned in with us. Today is Christ the King Sunday, so let us begin with a song that honors that. It is called Crown Him with Many Crowns. Let us sing. Christ is King indeed. Hey, one who is the King of all, Christ the Lord. We're at Bethel, Bethel of Mound. In case you're coming in from somewhere else and don't know who you're talking with, this is Bethel. Bethel means the house of God. This is the place where we feel unconditional love is at the heart of it all. And so we do our best to try to share that unconditional love with all of you and know that when you come in, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we know you are loved unconditionally by our Lord and Savior. And this is a place to feel safe. Thanks for being with us today. Um, we are in the middle of wrapping up a series, I should say. We're about to launch, of course, into Advent next week. So that means this whole calendar year is about to come to a close. This last 9 weeks, we have been looking at a series called The Path Forward, when the landscape changes. And that has been a great metaphor for us to see how our own journeys are moving forward. And sometimes there's so much change and we have to get out of our boats. And this was a story that we heard that was part of the Lewis and Clark story. We have been weaving their adventures forward with us and have found lots of different parallels and said, wow, there are things we can keep learning from them. I had been pulling from one resource, a book by Todd Bolzinger. He was a great writer, gave a lot of perspective and insight and some stories that went with the whole Lewis and Clark adventure. And so I've been constantly nodding to him and thanking him for that and just letting you know that we've been sharing. Last week, for example, we found out that not everyone is ready to make the adventurous trip, to go off the map, as they say. Not everyone is going to go do that. Some, like President Thomas Jefferson, is what we learned last week, didn't go west, hardly left the Shenandoah Valley there, but yet he played a critical role, a very critical role in the success of all these adventures that we had been hearing about. He was their patron. He was their initiator. He's the one who came up with the idea that we need to send out a group, a corps of discovery to find what's out there. You know, there are people who are prayer warriors that do the same thing. The encouragers that are always out there cheering us on, and also the inspiring visionaries imagining what can be. Maybe they're not the ones who take the canoes themselves or venture forth into the unknown, but they are key players nonetheless. We also read last week about mentors like the prophet, or the priest, I should say, Eli. Remember him from our Bible there? He was the one who teaches us, as he was teaching his young apprentice, to reframe your questions and to listen to whatever God is calling you to do. Just listen and say, here I am, your servant is listening. And recommitting ourselves to bringing Christ's light forward was part of what we did last week. So that just reminds us of where we have been. But now today, as I said, we are completing the series. And I'm going to be inviting in more than the voice of Todd Bolzinger or the voice of Pastor Jim into this story. Because there's, well, either the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to affectionately say, or there's just more depth to the story that we should give honor to. So I have invited in someone who wasn't able to be here, but she made a special recording just for Bethel and all of you out there. So this is, well, her story, at least one more perspective on this. Her message reminds me of, actually, it reminded me of another one of those TED Talks. Do you ever watch those? You know, those wonderful short, 2 to 15 minute usually, often little talks that are very inspiring and enlightening and eye-opening. There was one that just caught my eye that I just have played several times. I'm going to look at her name here because it was rather unique. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hers was one I would highly recommend you look up. The title is called The Danger of the Single Story. The danger of the single story. The heart of it, Adachi makes, is that if we hear of a people, a group of people, as just one thing, as only one thing, and we hear it over and over again, that is when they become in our minds just this one thing. And it's like if I said Mexicans, you might automatically think of abject immigrants is what comes to mind, or Africans as pitiable backward people in a very hot land. And if I were to say Native Americans, you might think of drunken and misplaced fools. Oh, there's a danger in that. But there's more to the story, is what she was saying. And there's more to the story that you're going to hear today. More depth to a people, more sides to what's going on, more about what took place to describe the history which we have been hearing. And so each week, too, this is the last time I'm going to get to show you a path for a while. I've been showing you a different path each week. Remember, so here's this week's path of the day, shall we say. There it is. It is a path that shows you at least two options, one to the left there that goes down, and one to the right, which climbs up those stone steps. Yeah, walk only one path, and you might miss the rest of what the other paths have to offer. Insist that there's just one way to go, and we miss the beauty which comes from the fullness of God's diversity, which is found on all the other paths. That's another way to think about where we're headed today, to hear more voices and more perspectives on this story. So each week I also tend to send you off to watch a inspiring video that sort of capitulates, what's the word, puts it all together, at the end. But we're just going to flip these around a little bit, and I'm going to send you off right now. Okay, I'm going to send you off to YouTube early this time. And hopefully there's a link that's popping up if we've got our act together. It is going to prepare, I think, your soul for today's message by this one that I'll introduce when we come back. It's a story, or I should say a song by Brandon Heath. And it's asking God for eyes to see the ones that we so often overlook, okay? And even though it's not specifically about Native Americans, I just think if we keep the Native American community in mind as we listen to this song, because they often can be the ones that we overlook. Give me the eyes, God, to see what you see. And so go take a look at this video. It's about a 4-minute video. If you're not one to click over, then here's your assignment. Into the chat, I invite you to, type in one of your favorite Thanksgiving memories. Okay? Thanksgiving memory into the chat feature there, and share with each other so that you can be connected to, and we'll celebrate that way too. So we'll be back in about 4 minutes to continue with the message. I'll have to comment on that. How many viewers? Hey, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video. Though I imagine several of you did not click over and you were eavesdropping on my conversation with my wife. There's just certain things that I probably wouldn't say on camera, like how sad it is that Sue is always in her deer stand on Thanksgiving. But there are things like that come out. And greetings to all you out there. It's good to see you there. Rachel, you have some very interesting Thanksgivings this year included. So, yeah, do get well and try not to drink anything too gross, okay? Anyway, we're glad you're all with us, and let's just have a little prayer to center us as we get into this message. Hey, holy, holy King of all the earth, we come to you filled with such gratitude right now, just filled with the joy of the season, the bounty you have given us, even though it's been hard and there's been challenges, which is part of this journey and part of maybe all of humanity's journeys. But still, you're there loving upon us and blessing us and reigning over us. So, Holy One, stir our hearts again, open our eyes again, and make us again aware that we need to see what you can see and care for those who we often overlook. Bless us as we hear this message today. Amen. So, Reverend Stephanie Escher, okay? Stephanie Escher is our guest preacher this morning, and she is a graduate of the University of Colorado at Boulder, and she received her seminary education at Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. Pastor Stephanie also happens to be an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians and is an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. She has most recently served as pastor of a Good Samaritan United Methodist in Edina, Minnesota. Her message today is entitled Bird's Eye View, and it is filled with, well, I loved it. It's got stories and lessons, let's just say she is deeply authentic, okay? She comes to us, as I said, pre-recorded, as she was unable to join us this morning in person, but it is a recording that was made specifically for us here at Bethel, and we thank her for that. So after her message, which is approximately 18 minutes in length, we'll come back together, okay? And we will reflect on her words and the perspective she gives us to see with God's eyes. I believe that many of you are really going to enjoy hearing this word from Reverend Stephanie Escher.
Our sacred words today are taken from a letter to the Ephesians, chapter 1, verses 17 to 18. I pray that God may give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation as you come to know God, so that with the eyes of your heart enlightened, you may know what is the hope to which God has called you. I remember when I was maybe a freshman in high school, and my friend and her parents were going to come to town and they were going to visit us. And so I drew them a map. And I was very impressed with my map. I thought I picked the least complicated route off the highway and got them around and away from traffic and into our house, no problem. So we get a call that day, and it's from my friend's parents, and they're saying, yeah, we're lost. And my parents look at me, we thought you gave them a map. And I said, I did. I don't know why they're lost, but I felt like I was quite the skilled cartographer as a young one. And so my dad gave them some verbal directions over the phone, and they finally made it to our house. And when they got there, they pulled out the map that I had drawn, and everybody started laughing. And I was like, I came over, I'm like, what are you laughing at? Yeah, this is the map I drew. Well, the map I drew was a little bit like Over the River and Through the Woods. It was only one way. Like, to look at this map, I had a highway here, and then I had one road the whole way. Even though it wasn't one road, I just drew that road. Like, you take this exit, you go this way, and then you're going to turn right. So I drew the road turning right, and then you're going to go left on this road, and then you're going to turn right on this road, and then left, and then around a corner, and there you are, boom, here's my house. And I drew my house. But I didn't draw the rest of the roads. Like, according to my map, there weren't any roads except the one road in my town that led to my house, which I guess is pretty much a teenage perspective. So everybody laughed about that. Hello, I'm Stephanie, and I'm an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians, and I was invited here today to offer you a bird's eye view, let's call it, or a larger perspective, or somehow to give you the rest of the story, the whole story of Lewis and Clark, and certainly its impact, and maybe the voice from Native Americans. I don't know that I can do that justice, but I will share this piece with you that opened my eyes. And it comes to the myth and the legend and the truth of Sacagawea. And yes, she was courageous and amazing and brave, and did have a little baby that she carried strapped on her like the coin shows, right? But also, Sacagawea was abducted from her tribe when she was only 12 years old, and she, in fact, was sold to Charbonneau, her husband, the French-Canadian fur trapper that Lewis and Clark had contracted with for the expedition, and in fact, in the end, paid him, and she didn't get any of that money. The myth goes on further to say that she eventually left her, rapscallion husband, her abusive husband, and was reunited with her boys and traveled the world and married another native man who was lovely, and in fact became a chief, and saw it all from this vista, this hilltop, as befitting a national hero, and she died at the age of 100 and has this beautiful marked grave on this reservation. Well, the reality is that Sacagawea died of typhoid when she was only 25 years old, and she died in an unmarked grave. Now, I do not say this to take away from the power of our myths and legends and stories and bits that are true, but I think until we as a people can widen our perspective and look at the larger map and the other stories, the other narratives, until we hold a space for that, we cannot see the world as God does, nor even begin to love it as God does, nor even be able to assume this work of hope that we are called to. I was adopted off the reservation, and it was near the tail end of this government project, the Indian Adoption Project, that had started maybe in the 50s. And the whole purpose of that was to strip Native people they're stripped of jurisdiction over their children. And so all children were, if they entered into the foster social services system, were immediately farmed out to non-Native families, to mostly white families. Eventually, this was called genocide, and the government even agreed to that, and the Indian Child Welfare Act came into play, and it stopped. Well, it purported to stop. It attempted to stop this behavior that was destroying the tribes. And in that, I was able to be enrolled after the fact. That was one of the conditions, is all the babies that were taken away, or little ones that were taken away, it was like people up to age 11, that we all had to be enrolled again in our tribe. Now, I didn't know much about my adoption. I grew up with some really, really lovely German Catholics, very lovely. And many people will say I had all kinds of opportunities I wouldn't have had on the reservation. But again, I would caution and say, there's a larger story. There always is. There's always a shadow side and a bright side, right, to everything. So again, to step back, we look into that story. I remember asking a lot of questions because I always felt lost, just like my mother used to say, I was on the outside looking in all the time. And I never really felt a sense of belonging or identity or home, and I couldn't quite figure it out. I didn't understand. There weren't any other Native Americans around me who were adopted. And my parents showed me, when I was of age, my birth certificate, and I thought that would give me answers. And in fact, everything was, there were black marks through anything that was relevant or poignant or would connect me, in fact, to anyone. So I tried again some years later, to no avail. Finally, I was in college. I was a student at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And one day, out of the blue, I got a check and a letter from the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and also the Department of Treasury the check came from. Let's say it was maybe $2,500. The letter said that it was a part of a peace treaty settlement with a larger group of people. There were maybe 30,000 of us. And that while the original treaty with our people was for 12 cents an acre, the government backed away from their original agreement and was only coming through at 2 cents an acre. So 30,000 people at 2 cents an acre, $2,400 each, that's a staggering, mind-blowing amount of land. And I would say that letter bound me to my people and my kin and my ancestry in a way that broke my heart wide open. And at the bottom of the letter, in my despair and through my tears, I was very angry. At the bottom of that letter, it said where I came from. They knew who I was and where I came from. It had my reservation and had a phone number. And I called it, and I had all the hope in the world. And it was a process. It was a journey. And ultimately, I used the money to go back, plane, train, and automobile as a college student on my summer vacation, to go back to my reservation and to find my family, to find my home, in particular to find my birth mom. And when I got there, it took some time, but it turned out that my mother had died a few months before I got there at the age of 43. So my hopes of finding belonging, identity, a sense of home My tribe? Dashed. Dashed. Some years later, I had heard about this powwow, this healing powwow they were doing. They'd only done a few of them in Minneapolis at the American Indian Center. And it was called something like the powwow to welcome home the lost birds. They called us lost birds, which kind of fit. But this was supposed to be a ceremony to bring us back into the circle, to help us heal, to help us remember, to help us continue to grow in love and in light. So of course I came. And I went there that day, and all of us adoptees, in fact, we were from all over the country. People flew in for this one-day event, and we were ushered upstairs, and we entered into a sacred talking circle, and we were slow to start. Most of us are slow to trust. But slowly people started sharing, and the tears started coming, and the stories of displacement and feeling lost and trying to go home, or feeling like on a beautiful day we all belong in two worlds, the native world and this Western world or white world, we say, and on a bad day or most days we feel like we don't belong in any. So where is our orientation? Who are we, and who are our people? So then we were, the women, we were gently wrapped in these native shawls that I've seen in powwows before, and the men were put in ribbon shirts that were made for them for this occasion. And we were ushered downstairs, and we were asked, all of us adoptees, to gather in a circle in the center of this room. And everyone was out the outside bearing witness, holding sacred space. And the medicine man came in, and he said prayers and sang involving the four directions. We all smoked something. It was beautiful. And then he explained what was going to happen. And he said, okay, this guy is going to sing this song, and it's called the Orphan Song. Anyway, he was going to sing the orphan song along with the drums. And while he's singing that song, the jingle dancers would be coming out. They're the ones who make the noise, the metal. They have the metal on their dresses. They would come through, and they would do a healing ceremony for us. And this was kind of the crux of the healing, is they had this dance, and it was called Wiping Away Their Tears. So it began, and I remember just tightening up all defenses, full mode, any walls, they were there. Because while I wanted this in the whole world, I was terrified of it too. I was terrified of it. So the guy started singing, and honest to God, it was like a cleaving right through your heart. His wailing, his moaning, his crying out to Creator, to the universe, and just the loneliness, the solitariness of it, it was just heartbreaking. So he starts singing, and I have to hold myself even tighter to not lose it. I was afraid I would lose it. So then the dancers start coming out. Oh my word. So they have their feather fans, and they all carry them, except there was one little girl who looked like she was 5 years old. Everyone else was older. So she didn't have one. She was too little to carry the fan, but she just bopped along and followed them in their journey of healing. So they came to the first person, and I was watching. And they started doing this movement along with their dance, right? So they would take the feather fan, and they would start at the top of your head, and they would slowly work their way down, and they would wipe away your tears. And the tears were coming. I mean, the person they were doing it to was just giant crocodile tears just streaming down her whole front side. And here was the most sacred, beautiful thing about it, something I'd never witnessed before, is there was no shame over the tears, and there was no, hey, I'm uncomfortable with your tears, so you stop, or feel better. Here's something to feel good about, right? Or I'll give you something to cry about, as a lot of us grew up with. But they just held the space, and that was part of the healing, was just this process, this freedom of the tears, and the whole collective just bearing witness and holding sacred space. So they did this for this person, and then they all did it for each person, and they'd go behind them and do it as well. And the guy was still singing this heartbreaking song the entire time. So I see them starting to come closer to me, and I'm getting more and more and more nervous. I mean, yes, in many ways, all I've ever wanted is to be broken open and to be a part of things and to be able to trust and feel like I could breathe. And yet all I could do in that moment was stop the breath. And so it got harder and harder. So I started doing math equations, like math tables in my head, multiplication tables, 8 times 8 is 64, so I could keep my, as they say, noodle separated from my heart. But I did spy with my little eye at the end of the line this 5-year-old girl, and I knew if anyone would be the death of me, it would be her. Because kids have special eyesight, and they can hold space and recognize and approach with all the courage in the world any broken-winged bird they might find. And so they came to me, and I didn't look at any of them, and I was doing my multiplication tables, and I couldn't close my eyes because, that would be rude, and I wasn't raised to be rude. And so I just had that soft gaze, like where you can see deer when it's a bunch of dots, that thing. So I was doing the soft gaze, so I didn't really see them, and I handled it. I mean, I went through maybe 16 of those dancers, and I was still standing, and no tears to be shed, none here. And then the little girl, I could see her out of the corner of my eye, and she was approaching. But I thought I was sort of saved because they were moving on to the next person. And I thought that was the end of it for me. I had made it through. And then all of a sudden I realized they had moved on, yes, but the little girl had not. She came to me, stood before me, and was looking up in my eyes. And I didn't see her. I mean, I did through my periphery. I knew she was there. It's more like I felt her. And I couldn't look at her. I couldn't. And it seemed like she stood there for days and weeks and months, a fortnight, and I couldn't look at her. And finally, she reached out and she touched me. And she just put her hand on my arm and wouldn't let go. And just continued to look into my eyes, or look up at my eyes. And finally, I could no longer hold back. I couldn't hold back. It was sort of this watershed. And I looked down at her, and I realized, oh no, I'd been crying for a very long time, but the tears were in reverse. They were going backwards, and now they could come forward, and I could be free. I could be liberated in a way. I could be broken open and become again a part of the flow in this larger sense of place and purpose and identity and kin. And I was looking around this room, and in fact, right after this had gotten done, the medicine man invited the circle to open, and he had everybody come in and welcome us home. And there were these grandmothers. I remember this woman came up to me, and I don't know, she was in her 90s, and she came up and she just held out her arms and just said, "Welcome home." Man, you know what that little girl did for me that day is she picked up this little broken-winged bird, and she placed me rightly back on my eagle's perch. And from that perch, I had a bird's eye view that showed me the fullness of it all, the complete picture. I could see the world in that way as God does and love it as God does, and I was a necessary part and parcel of this infinite circle of so many hues and colors and languages and perspectives, and that is where I found my hope. When we come back to our sacred scripture today, can we be blessed with the spirit of wisdom and open to these moments of revelation when not only our eyes here are open, but our eyes here are open, our hearts are enlightened, and then we are initiated into, welcomed into, embraced into this work of hope, that only we, those created in the image of a creative God, can possibly do. The only kind of hope that is lasting and is real. So that's my invitation to you today, is especially when you find yourself starting to cut yourself off, maybe out of fear, or detach a bit, or disconnect, or you start othering a lot of people, even if it is out of fear, that you step back and you move from your head to your heart, and you see from this place, and that you look for the rest of the story, because nothing is complete without the rest of the story, and it is a beautiful, beautiful story. Amen. And Aho.
Couldn't you just listen to her all day? Thank you, Reverend Stephanie. That was such a deep message. I'm kind of curious what parts may have jumped out at you. You know what What parts of the story that she told really uh, touched you somehow, wherever you happen to be? Think about that. She started off with I loved it, the one road map. It's all that we've been hearing. It was, you know, kind of humorous to us because it's so clear. Like you got to tell them there's take the third exit or the third road. It's like, but it's not that easy to know when you just see the one road to things. When the rest of the map is not drawn in, it makes it doesn't do it justice. I remember for myself, my Old Testament seminary professor, Reverend Carolyn Pressler. The Bible can be that way. Here is the one road, you know, and 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 she came along and filled in all the rest of the map. And it's not like it took away at all from the biblical narrative. It actually enriched it beyond that. And I think that's what you get from me a lot of the times is like, can't you see all this that's going on around the map, around that one line that's in the Bible? I mean, that just I resonated with greatly. Um, get the bird's eye view. Take a look at the map. Her other parts, Stephanie mentioned that the myth of Sacagawea. Wow. She says, until we can widen our perspective and look at the larger map, we cannot see the world as God does, nor love it as God does, nor assume this work of hope which we are called to. How very shocking to hear of Sacagawea's, um, well, the lore of her, and then the reality also of this young woman's journey that may have struck some of you also. She talked about being having her adoption and being off of the reservation and looking for something about belonging and identity and a sense of home, a group to call her tribe. Yeah, you know what? This really is what I think Bethel strives to offer. But didn't her story just offer a whole new level of the depth beyond hospitality, beyond just being nice? Well, isn't that nice? People are looking for this kind of home. So when we're saying welcome home, oh, we do not take that lightly. There are people who need home. And this, we hope, will be that kind of place with God. Finally, I just love the story of the powwow to bring back the lost birds was her last part. You remember that? There was the orphan song and the jingle dancers, and then that 5-year-old. Oh, that 5-year-old who brought forth the freedom of tears. The freedom from having them. I love that image of I've been crying a long time and it's been on the inside. It's been in reverse, as she says, and now they're able to come this way forward and be released. Oh my word. And then she just rounds it off saying that, nothing is complete without the rest of the stories. What a beautiful story it is. Thank you, Pastor Stephanie. That was golden. It's time. Got a little something also to share with you here. Sue, who is off in the deer stands. Hi, Sue. Hope you're still with us. Found this song for our offering today before she headed off to Wisconsin. That's where deer hunting takes place on this weekend. It comes from a French-Canadian tribe, and it definitely has a Native American sound, okay? But what surprised me was that it can be found on page 244 of our United Methodist hymnals. It's right there in our book of songs all the time, and yet we often overlook it and don't sing it. So the words that you're about to see are with the song and these beautiful images of nature. But rather than, here, let's everyone try to sing along with the song, you're welcome to do that at home if you know this tune, or if you really just want to play it, and it will be played right here. You don't need to click off to another spot. But then you can sing along and just watch the words and hear the melody and let it soak in to you. This song will be our official first official Advent song, shall we say, because it is about Jesus's birth. So I think we're close enough to have an Advent song, don't you think? I think so too. So let's give our offering now and also receive this offering to us from our native friends. How will you live the life I have given to you? And the people say, like a still, deep pool in the desert, we will live in a way that reflects your love back onto your world. And our God and Creator asks, well, how will you walk This path I have given to you. And the people respond, like the creatures of the forest, we will walk in a way that reflects all life created by your hand. Our God and Creator asks, how will you reach out to the world beyond yourselves? Like the branches of sapling tree, we will strive to reach beyond the safe and the familiar, touching the world in your name. Help us to remember we all are connected through the endless circle of life and creation. Teach us to trust and to follow the example of Jesus Christ, who lived a life of sacrifice, walked a path of goodness and mercy, and reached beyond human differences. Amen. Part of my prayer is that you found something to carry with you forward this day and into your week, and ways to keep living your faith. I bet came right from Pastor Stephanie's message today. Take her soul with you, her words, her spirit, and maybe that is how you live out your faith in so many deep ways. Just letting you know, too, if you happen to be in the area, this is kind of the way we start off our Advent around here. It's been tradition for, decades in my life of having something called a family Advent workshop. Get together with the church family. So we're going to be doing that after the in-person worship here. There'll be a brunch starting at 11, and then there's just crafts to do for kids of all ages, not just the little ones. Most of the projects are for adults. So come on over if you happen to be in the area and enjoy this time with us. There's no set cost at all. Free will offerings are certainly welcome to offset any of the expenses, but are not expected. So come if you'd like. I know Sue, I can hear her from the stand saying, who wants to provide some music? And she would love to work some of your music in as well over the airwaves here. As you can see, we can do this with other guest speakers and preachers. We can also do that with you with music. So just let us know if you have an interest, and she can work that out. You can reach out to her. Hers is actually technology at bethelofmound.org, or you can contact me and I'll get a message to her, or it's on our website, or lots of different ways. So going to let you know, too, that the office is closed because Rajan, our office administrator, is off on a great family cruise for this Thanksgiving week. If you need anything, you can contact me directly. Messages can be left at on the machine there at church, but more direct if you just reach out to me, and I'll take care of things. Um, we're always ready to invite more people into the journey, and we certainly need some more people to help out with the AV. My wife is doing an exceptional job doing two jobs at once here with projections and sound, and she's just just all over the place. So, what's that? Three things. Yeah, excuse me. She's doing three things, not two things. So, uh, a helper would be helpful. So, anyway, do realize if you've got gifts and interests that way, it all adds up and is shared wonderfully. But next week, let's just get ready for next week, shall we? It is the start of Advent. It is the start of a brand new church calendar, as we say, and what a great series is shaping up this next one to be. It is entitled "The Weary World Rejoices," and it will include, get this, not only a great series on all that, but there is a 4-part video series that I have also come upon, which has discussion guides and allows you to do this on your own or with some groups. You can dig into deeper what these messages are all about. Look for it on our website. We're going to try something new there, and I think it's going to work. And this series is ideal for those who may be feeling, well, let's just say a little more down than up. Sometimes during the holidays ahead, it is okay. It is understandable to be, geez, less than jolly all the time, okay? We'll leave that to Santa Claus, but you've got life to live, and it can be very hard sometimes. So here's this tool. You can access it. The videos go from, let's just say like an average of around 15 minutes, and you watch this thing at any time you want. You can watch it at midnight. You can watch it when you get up in the morning, whatever it fits in your schedule. And take that all in and listen to access the guide that's there. But I just want to let you know, too, that if you would prefer to have someone to have contact with while you're going through this, someone to talk to, or just email if you don't even want to talk to them, but you just want to have someone to bounce something back and forth, we will have a link that is also available right with that series with a certified spiritual guide who is more than happy to walk this path with you. So it will be a great series, I pray. Yeah, looking forward to that. Our departing song, though, for this day. Yeah, well, it actually isn't a song at all. It's one of those inspiring videos that I often show at the beginning of worship as you're settling in. But since we're all ready to send you off, we have already sent you off to YouTube for that. So this one is not sending you off. It is actually, well, it's not quite Advent yet, is it? So here's a little Thanksgiving sent off for you. This Thursday here, we give thanks for a great many things. Thought maybe this is an appropriate way to end this worship time together, is to close this off with some gratitude and some things that remind ourselves in a little over a minute of all the things to be grateful for. It is simply entitled Today We Are Thankful. So from God's house here at Bethel to your house, wherever that happens to be, may joy and gratitude fill both your heart and your home this week. Thanks for tuning in. Blessings on your journey.